Commander Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the USS Dakota, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship moved slowly through empty space, far from Earth and any human colony. Jake had been out here for 3 months, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that humans might one day call home. The Dakota was not a warship. It was built for exploration, with powerful sensors and a crew of scientists. Jake liked it that way. He had seen enough fighting during the Mars colonial wars. Now he preferred the quiet work of discovery. "Commander, we have something strange," said Amy Turner from the communication station. Amy was young, maybe 25, with bright red hair and quick fingers that danced across her control panel. She had been with the Dakota for 2 years and was the best communications officer Jake had ever worked with. Jake walked over to Amy's station. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, sir. Very weak, coming from the direction of that red star." She pointed at the main screen, where a distant red dot glowed among the other stars. "But it's not like anything in our databases." Lisa Parker, the chief science officer, looked up from her own station. Lisa was older than Amy, maybe 40, with gray hair and serious eyes behind thick glasses. She had spent most of her life studying alien worlds, though she had never actually met any aliens. "Can you clean up the signal?" Lisa asked Amy. Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. The bridge was quiet, except for the soft hum of the ship's engines and the beeping of various computers. Finally, Amy shook her head. "I can make it clearer, but I can't understand it. It's definitely artificial, not natural. Someone or something is sending it on purpose." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all of humanity's years in space, they had found empty worlds and dead civilizations, but never living aliens. If this was really an alien signal, it would change everything. "Put it on the speakers," Jake said. The bridge filled with a strange sound. It was not music, but it was not just noise either. There were patterns in it, like someone trying to communicate in a language no human had ever heard. Ben Rodriguez, the navigation officer, looked up from his station. Ben was a big man with dark skin and careful hands. He had been flying spaceships longer than anyone else on the Dakota. "Commander, that signal is coming from about 15 light years away. If we change course now, we could reach it in about 3 weeks. Jake thought about this. The Dakota was supposed to be mapping this area of space for another month. If they went to investigate the signal, they would fall behind schedule. Earth Command would not be happy, but this could be first contact with an alien race. That was more important than any schedule. "Lisa, can you learn anything more about the signal?" Jake asked. Lisa had been working at her station while they talked. Now she looked up with excitement in her eyes. "Commander, this is amazing. The signal contains mathematical constants. Pi, the golden ratio, prime numbers. Whoever is sending this knows advanced mathematics. That proves intelligence," Amy added. "No natural process could create patterns like this." Jake made his decision. "Ben, set course for the source of that signal. Maximum speed." "Yes, sir," Ben said, his fingers moving across his controls. The Dakota turned and began to accelerate toward the distant red star. Over the next few days, Amy worked to decode more of the signal. It was slow work, but she began to find patterns. Lisa helped her, using her knowledge of mathematics and physics, to understand what the aliens might be trying to say. On the 4th day, Amy made a breakthrough. "Commander, you need to see this," she said, her voice shaking with excitement. Jake came to her station. On Amy's screen was a picture made of dots and lines. It showed star positions, but not from any human map. "This is a star chart," Amy explained. "But look at this." She pointed to one area of the chart. "These stars match the ones in our own databases. This is the area around Earth." Jake stared at the screen. They know where we are? It looks that way, sir. And there's more. Amy brought up another image. This looks like a distress signal. The mathematical patterns repeat in a way that suggests urgency, maybe even panic. Lisa had been studying the images too. Commander, I think they're asking for help. Jake felt cold. If aliens were sending distress signals toward Earth, it meant they were in trouble. Big trouble. Can you decode any more of it? He asked. Amy and Lisa worked together for the rest of the day. Slowly, they began to understand more of the alien message. It told a story of a peaceful people under attack by enemies who destroyed entire worlds. The aliens called themselves the Vellani, and they were dying. The message said the Vellani had been watching human space for years. They had seen human ships and human colonies. They knew that humans were good at fighting and winning wars. The Vellani were not warriors. They needed help from people who understood war. That night, Jake sat alone in his quarters, thinking about what to do. Humanity had rules about contact with alien races. The rules said to observe and report, but not to interfere. Jake was supposed to send a message to Earth and wait for orders, but the Vellani were dying while he waited. By the time Earth made a decision and sent help, it might be too late. Jake made up his mind. He called Amy to his quarters. I want you to send a message back to the Vellani, he told her. Tell them we received their signal. Tell them help is coming. Amy looked worried. Sir, that's against regulations. We're not supposed to make contact without permission from Earth. I know, Jake said, but sometimes you have to do what's right, not what's safe. Amy nodded slowly. What should I tell them? Tell them about humanity. Tell them we're coming to help. And Amy, use our strongest transmitter. Make sure they receive it. The next morning, Amy sent humanity's first message to an alien race. It was simple. We hear you. We are coming to help. Hold on. Jake also sent a message to Earth, telling them about the discovery and what he had done. He knew there would be trouble when they arrived home, but he did not care. The Dakota continued toward the Red Star and the dying Vellani. Behind them, Earth would soon learn that humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and that their first contact with aliens would be as protectors and warriors. Jake looked at the stars and wondered what they would find when they reached the Vellani. He hoped they would not be too late. Admiral Kate Sullivan read Jake Mitchell's message for the third time. She sat in her office at Earth Defense Command, looking out at the blue planet below through her window. In 30 years of military service, she had never faced a decision like this. The message was clear. Commander Mitchell had made contact with an alien race called the Vellani. These aliens were under attack and asking for help. Mitchell had already replied to them, promising that humans would come to their aid. Kate rubbed her tired eyes. Mitchell had broken every rule about first contact, but she understood why he did it. The Vellani were dying, and they had asked Earth for help. What kind of people would ignore such a plea? Her assistant knocked on the door. Admiral, the President is calling. Kate took the call. President Williams sounded stressed. Admiral, I've read the report. What do you think we should do? Sir, I think we should help them, Kate said without hesitation. If we ignore this, an entire peaceful race might die. That's not who we are as humans. But we don't know anything about this conflict. What if we're taking sides in a war we don't understand? Kate had thought about this too. Mr. President, from what Mitchell learned, the Vellani are peaceful people who build beautiful cities and study science. Their enemies, the Krovak, destroy whole planets and enslave anyone who survives. Even if we don't know everything, we know enough. The President was quiet for a moment. What would you need? I want to send a small fleet to investigate. 2 ships, maybe 3. Fast ones that can get there quickly and report back. Do it. The president said. But Admiral, be careful. This could change everything for humanity. Kate knew he was right. After the call ended, she began making plans. She chose Captain Ryan Cooper to lead the mission. Ryan was young but smart, and he had commanded ships in dangerous situations before. His ship, the U.S. Phoenix, was fast and well-armed. She also chose Captain Maria Santos and her ship, the U.S. Ranger. Maria was older than Ryan and had more experience with difficult diplomatic situations. If they really did meet aliens, Maria would know how to handle it. Both ships left Earth 3 days later. They carried the best diplomats, scientists, and translators that Earth could provide. They also carried weapons just in case. The journey to Vellani space took 2 weeks. During that time, Amy Turner continued to intercept and decode Vellani messages. The news was bad. The Korvac had destroyed 2 more Vellani worlds while the human ships traveled through space. When the Phoenix and Ranger finally arrived at the edge of Vellani space, they found a system in chaos. Broken ships drifted between the planets. Strange. Energy readings came from the inner worlds. And everywhere, there were signs of terrible destruction. My God, Ryan whispered as he looked at the sensor readings. One of the planets in the system was completely dead. Its surface glowed with radiation, and no life signs registered on their instruments. Maria's voice came over the communication system from the Ranger. Ryan, are you seeing this? I see it, Ryan replied. Whatever the Korvac are, they don't just conquer worlds. They destroy them completely. The 2 human ships moved carefully into the system. They detected Vellani ships hiding behind the moons of the outermost planet, but these ships were clearly damaged and afraid. Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves, came a message in perfect English. The voice was strange, musical, and beautiful, but also filled with fear. Ryan answered. This is Captain Ryan Cooper of the Earthship Phoenix. We received your distress call. We're here to help. There was a long pause. Then the voice came again, and now it sounded like crying. You came. You actually came. Please, follow us to the 3rd planet. Our leaders wait for you there. The Vellani ships led them to a world covered in crystal cities that sparkled like jewels. But even these beautiful cities showed signs of damage. Some areas were dark, their crystal towers broken and lifeless. Ryan and Maria took shuttles down to the planet's surface. They were met by creatures unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The Vellani were tall and thin, with skin that looked like frosted glass. They had 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. When they moved, they seemed to float rather than walk. The Vellani leader introduced himself as Ambassador Thiel. He spoke English well, though his voice made musical sounds that no human throat could produce. Captain Cooper, Captain Santos, we are grateful beyond words that you have come, Thiel said. But I must tell you, the situation is worse than we could communicate across space. Thiel led them to a crystal building that served as their command center. Inside, holographic displays showed the current state of the war. 12 Vellani worlds had been completely destroyed. Only 3 remained, and they were under constant attack. The Korvac do not simply conquer, Thiel explained. They consume. They strip planets of all resources, take any survivors as slaves, and then move on to the next world. They have done this to hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy. Maria studied the tactical displays. How many ships do they have? Thousands, Thiel replied. But they are not ships as you would understand them. The Korvac use living vessels, grown rather than built. These bioships heal themselves and can reproduce. Each victory makes their fleet stronger. Ryan felt sick as he realized the scope of the threat. Why did you contact us? There must be other races out there with stronger militaries. File's large eyes looked directly at Ryan. Captain, we have studied many species across the galaxy. Most civilizations become peaceful once they achieve space travel. They focus on art, science, and philosophy. War becomes unthinkable to them. But not humans, Maria said, understanding. No, not humans, File agreed. Your species is unique. You have achieved great technological advancement, but you have not forgotten how to fight. Your history shows that you can be both civilized and fierce. When peaceful people are threatened, you become dangerous. File showed them recordings of Korvac attacks. The alien invaders were massive creatures, twice the size of humans, covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. They fought with brutal efficiency, using weapons that seemed to be part of their own bodies. They are perfect predators, File explained. They evolved on a world where only the strongest survived. They cannot understand concepts like mercy or negotiation. To them, other species exist only to be consumed. Ryan and Maria spent hours studying the tactical information. The Korvac had advantages in numbers, and their bioships were tough, but they relied on overwhelming force, rather. And strategy? They had never faced an enemy that could fight back effectively. How long do you have? Maria asked. Perhaps 2 months, File replied. Our remaining worlds have strong defenses, but they weaken with each attack. When they fall, the Velani will be extinct. That night, Ryan sent a detailed report back to Earth. He included everything they had learned about the Korvac threat and the desperate situation of the Velani. He ended his message with a simple request: send the fleet. All of it. Maria also sent her own report, focusing on the diplomatic and cultural aspects of the situation. She wrote, "The Velani are everything we hope to find in space: peaceful, intelligent, and beautiful. They represent the best possibilities for galactic civilization. If we let them die, we become no better than the monsters attacking them." 3 days later, they received Earth's reply. Admiral Sullivan's message was brief. Help is coming. Hold position and gather all intelligence possible. Do not engage the enemy until reinforcements arrive. But at the end of the message was another note, this one from President Williams himself. To the Velani people, Earth stands with you. We will not let your civilization die while we have the power to prevent it. Ryan read the message to Ambassador. File. The Velani leader's crystalline features seemed to brighten with hope. Your people are truly as brave as we believed, File said. But Captain, you must understand what you are risking. The Korvac have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. If you fail, they will turn their attention to Earth. Ryan looked at the alien diplomat and smiled grimly. Ambassador, the Korvac have never fought humans before. They're about to learn why we're called Deathworlders. High above the crystal cities of the Velani homeworld, the Phoenix and Ranger kept watch, waiting for the Earth fleet to arrive. In the distance, dark shapes moved between the stars. Korvac scout ships, preparing for their final assault. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the war room at Earth Defense Command, looking at the biggest star map she had ever seen. Red dots marked Korvac positions, while blue dots showed the locations of surviving Velani worlds. The red dots far outnumbered. The blue ones dot around the table sat the most experienced military officers in human space. General Pete Anderson commanded the Marine Corps. Admiral Jack Harrison led the Deathworlder fleet, humanity's most powerful military force. Dr. Helen Carter, the best xenobiologist on Earth, had studied every piece of information about the Korvac that Ryan Cooper had sent back. "Gentlemen, lady," Kate began, "we face a decision that will define humanity's place in the galaxy. The Velani are dying, and they've asked for our help. But make no mistake, this is not just about saving one alien race. If the Korvac destroy, the Vellani, Earth, will be next on their list. Admiral Harrison leaned forward. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years as a ship captain. What are we looking at in terms of enemy strength? Dr. Carter answered. Based on Captain Cooper's reports, the Korvac have at least 3,000 bioships of various sizes. Their largest vessels are over 2 kilometers long and carry thousands of warriors. But here's the interesting part. They've never fought an enemy that uses coordinated tactics. What do you mean? Asked General Anderson. The Korvac are hunters. Dr. Carter explained. They evolved as pack predators, but they rely on instinct and overwhelming force. Every species they've conquered was peaceful, with limited military experience. They've never faced an opponent that could match their aggression with superior strategy. Kate activated a holographic display showing the human fleet. This is what we're sending to Vellani space. Admiral Harrison will command from the UES Titan. We have 12 heavy cruisers, 40 destroyers, and 60 support vessels. Total crew, nearly 50,000 people. The numbers seemed small compared to the Korvac fleet, but Harrison smiled. Kate, I like our chances. Human ships are built for war. We've learned from every conflict in our history. Our crews train constantly for combat. And unlike the Korvac, we work together. Harrison had been planning the mission for weeks. Each ship had a specific role. The heavy cruisers would engage the largest Korvac bioships directly. The destroyers would use hit-and-run tactics to confuse the enemy. The support vessels carried marines, supplies, and specialized equipment. What about their bioships? Anderson asked. How do we fight living vessels that can heal themselves? Dr. Carter had been working on this problem since the first reports arrived. I've been studying the biological samples that Captain Cooper managed to collect. The Korvac bioships have a weakness. They're vulnerable to certain sound frequencies that disrupt their nervous systems. She showed them a new weapon that human engineers had developed in record time. We call it a sonic disruptor. It sends out waves of sound that make the bioships convulse and lose control. It won't destroy them, but it will disable them long enough for our regular weapons to finish the job. The meeting continued for hours as they planned every detail of the mission. Human ships would arrive at Vellani space in 3 groups. The first group would establish a defensive position around the surviving Vellani worlds. The second group would engage the main Korvac fleet. The third group would hunt down any Korvac ships that tried to escape. Meanwhile, at shipyards around Earth, workers labored day and night to prepare the fleet. The UES Titan, Harrison's flagship, was the most powerful warship humanity had ever built. Its armor was thick enough to withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons. Its weapons could destroy a city-sized asteroid with a single shot. Captain Nicole Davis commanded one of the heavy cruisers, the UES Thunder. Nicole had fought in the Jupiter mining wars and knew how to handle her ship in battle. Her crew had trained together for 5 years and could operate their weapons with deadly precision. Captain Steve Miller led another cruiser, the UES Lightning. Steve was younger than Nicole, but just as experienced. His ship specialized in electronic warfare, using computers and sensors to confuse enemy targeting systems. The destroyers were commanded by officers like Captain Tony Rodriguez, whose ship UES Falcon was built for speed and surprise attacks. Tony had developed new tactics for fighting larger vessels, using his ship's mobility to attack from unexpected angles. Dr. Carter worked with Vellani, scientists who had arrived on Earth as refugees. Together, they created hybrid technologies that combined human engineering with Vellani science. The results were impressive. Human weapons became more efficient, while Vellani shields became stronger. One Vellani scientist, named Korvac, worked closely with human engineers to modify their ships. Your technology is so different from ours, he told them. Velani science seeks elegance and efficiency. Human technology seeks power and reliability. Together, they create something neither could achieve alone. The cultural exchange fascinated everyone involved. Humans learned about Velani art, which used light and crystal to create beauty that moved through time. Velani learned about human music and were amazed that humans could create such complex emotions through sound alone. But the most important exchange was military knowledge. Velani computers could process information faster than human systems, while human tactical thinking could solve problems that Velani logic could not handle. Admiral Harrison spent time with Velani military officers, learning about Korvac behavior. They hunt in packs, explained a Velani commander named Thiel, but their packs are rigid. Each bioship has a specific role and cannot adapt when the situation changes. That's their weakness, Harrison realized. If we can force them to react to unexpected situations, they'll make mistakes. As the fleet prepared to depart, news arrived from Captain Cooper. The Korvac had begun their final assault on the last Velani worlds. Time was running out. President Williams visited the fleet. Before it departed, he spoke to the assembled crews via video link. You carry with you the hopes of two civilizations, he said. The Velani look to you for salvation. Earth looks to you for protection. But most importantly, you carry the values that make us human: courage, compassion, and the refusal to let innocents suffer while we have the power to help them. Admiral Harrison added his own words. We're not just fighting for the Velani or for Earth. We're fighting for what's right. The Korvac believe that might makes right, that the strong should consume the weak. We're going to show them that civilization is stronger than savagery, that cooperation defeats pure aggression. The fleet departed Earth space on a Tuesday morning. 112 ships carrying 50,000 humans, along with several hundred Velani advisors and technicians. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled for a single mission. As they entered hyperspace, heading for a conflict that would determine the fate of two species, Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of the Titan and thought about what they were attempting. They were traveling to a distant star system to fight an enemy they had never seen, to save people they barely knew. But that, he realized, was exactly what made humans special. They were willing to risk everything for strangers who needed help. Behind them, Earth continued its preparations. If the fleet failed, the planet would face the Korvac alone. But Harrison had confidence in his people. Humans had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. They had spread across the solar system and begun to explore the galaxy. Now they would face their greatest test. But they would not face it alone. For the first time in human history, they fought alongside alien allies, combining their strengths to face a common enemy. The Deathworlder fleet raced through hyperspace toward its destiny, carrying the hopes of two civilizations and the fury of aroused humanity. Admiral Jack Harrison stood on the bridge of the U.E. Satan as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Velani space. What he saw through the main view screen made his blood run cold. Velani Prime, the beautiful crystal world that had sparkled like a jewel when Captain Cooper first visited, was now surrounded by darkness. Hundreds of Korvac bioships formed a tight blockade around the planet. The ships looked like massive insects, their black holes pulsing with organic lights. Some were over a kilometer long, others smaller, but no less threatening. Report, Harrison ordered. Commander Lisa Chun, his tactical officer, studied her instruments. Sir, I count approximately 800 Korvac vessels in the immediate area. The planet's shields are still holding, but they are weakening fast. Harrison could see the planet's crystal cities through the failing energy barrier. They still glowed with beautiful light, but that light was fading as the Korvac weapons slowly overwhelmed the defenses. Communications. Contact Captain Cooper. On the Phoenix, Ryan Cooper's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and worried. "Admiral, thank God you're here. The Korvac began their final assault yesterday. The planet has maybe 12 hours before the shields collapse completely. What about the other Vellani worlds?" "Gone," Ryan said quietly. "They fell 3 days ago. Vellani Prime is all that's left." Harrison felt anger building in his chest. In the time it had taken his fleet to cross space, 2 entire worlds had died. Billions of peaceful beings had been murdered or enslaved. The Korvac would pay for that. "All ships, this is Admiral Harrison," he announced over the fleet communication system. "We have traveled far to be here today. Below us is the last free world of the peaceful people who asked for our help. Around us are the murderers who have destroyed entire civilizations. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when humans decide to fight." The human fleet moved into attack formation. The heavy cruisers formed the center, their massive guns aimed at the largest Korvac bioships. The destroyers spread out in a wide line, ready to attack from multiple directions. The support ships stayed back, but their marines were ready too. Bored enemy vessels dot the Korvac noticed the human fleet immediately. Their bioships began to turn, forming their own attack formation. But Harrison could see that they were confused. The Korvac had never faced an organized military force before. They did not know how to respond to coordinated tactics. "Captain Davis, take your cruiser group and engage their left flank," Harrison ordered. "Captain Miller, hit their right side. I want them confused and scattered before we commit the main force." Nicole Davis acknowledged the order and led 5 heavy cruisers toward the Korvac left flank. Her ships moved in perfect formation. There, weapons charging for the first shots of the battle, the Korvac bioships opened fire first. Streams of organic acid shot across space, followed by living missiles that writhed and twisted as they flew. The human ship's shields absorbed most of the damage, but some acid got through and began eating at their armor. Then the human ships returned. Fire. The sound of human weapons was different from anything the Korvac had experienced. Nuclear tipped. Torpedoes exploded against bioship hulls, creating massive holes in their living armor. Laser cannons cut through organic tissue like hot knives through butter. And the new sonic disruptors sent waves of sound that made the bioships convulse. In agony, Captain Davis watched as her first salvo struck a massive Korvac bioship. The creature writhed in pain as human weapons tore into its flesh. Green blood sprayed into space as the dying ship lost control and crashed into 2 smaller vessels. "Target their command ships," Davis ordered her crew. "Take out their coordination and they'll fall apart." Meanwhile, Captain Miller's electronic warfare systems were causing chaos in the Korvac fleet. His computers jammed their communications and confused their targeting systems. Korvac bioships began firing at each other, unable to tell friend from enemy. The Korvac tried to respond with their usual tactics. Large groups of bioships would swarm individual human vessels, trying to overwhelm them with numbers. But the humans had trained for this. Their ships worked together, supporting each other with overlapping fields of fire. When 20 Korvac ships attacked Captain Rodriguez's destroyer Falcon, they found themselves caught in a crossfire from 3 other human ships. The Korvac bioships were torn apart before they could reach their target. Admiral Harrison watched the battle develop and smiled grimly. The Korvac were fierce fighters, but they had no idea how to handle an enemy that could think and adapt. Every time they tried a new tactic, the humans were ready with a counter-move. "Sir, we're receiving a message from the planet," reported the communications officer. Ambassador Thiel's musical voice came over the speakers. "Admiral Harrison, we are watching your battle from our crystal cities. Never have we seen such beautiful violence. You fight like artists of war. Harrison activated his communicator. Ambassador, we're going to break through their blockade. Be ready to drop your shields so we can land ground forces. We understand, Admiral. And Admiral, thank you. Whatever happens today, you have given us hope in our darkest hour. The battle continued for 3 hours. Slowly, the human fleet pushed through the Korvac blockade. For every human ship damaged, 10 Korvac bioships were destroyed. The alien predators had never faced prey that could fight back so effectively. Finally, Harrison saw his chance. A gap had opened in the Korlock formation, leading directly to the planet. Colonel Anderson, launch your Marines, he ordered. General Pete Anderson commanded 2,000 Marines aboard specially designed assault ships. These warriors had trained for zero-gravity combat and boarding actions. They were armed with weapons designed specifically to fight the Korvac. Anderson's assault ships raced through the gap in the enemy formation. Korvac bioships tried to intercept them, but human fighter planes provided cover. The small, fast human ships darted around the massive bioships, their weapons finding weak spots in the organic armor. The assault ships reached the planet's surface and began landing near the crystal cities. The Marines spread out quickly, setting up defensive positions around the Valani population centers. The Korvac were not finished. They sent their own ground forces to the planet's surface. These warriors were even more terrifying up close than none. In space, they stood 3 meters tall, with thick black armor that seemed to be part of their bodies. Their weapons were living things that sprayed acid and fired exploding spines, but the human Marines were ready for them. They used tactics learned in 100 different wars on a dozen different worlds. They set up kill zones where Korvac warriors would be caught in crossfire. They used the Crystal City's architecture to create defensive positions, and they fought with a fury that surprised even themselves. Sergeant Mike Wilson led a squad of Marines in defending one of the crystal towers. When 50 Korvac warriors attacked his position, he held them off with just 12 men. His squad used grenades and automatic weapons to create a wall of death that the Korvac could not cross. "These aliens think they're scary," Wilson shouted to his men as he reloaded his rifle. "Let's show them what scary really looks like." The Marines fought building by building, street by street. The Velani civilians helped them, showing them secret passages through the crystal structures and providing information about Korvac movements in space. A naval battle was reaching its climax. Admiral Harrison had concentrated his fleet into a tight formation and was pushing directly toward the largest Korvac bioship, a massive creature that seemed to be the enemy commander. "All ships, focus fire on that big ugly thing," Harrison ordered. Every human weapon turned toward the command bioship. Hundreds of missiles and laser blasts struck the creature simultaneously. Its organic armor began to crack and burn. Green blood poured from massive wounds as the dying ship lost control. As the command ship died, the entire Korvac fleet began to fall apart. Without central coordination, the bioships started acting on instinct rather than strategy. They scattered in all directions, some fleeing toward deep space, others crashing into each other in their confusion. Captain Cooper, watching from the Phoenix, opened a communication channel to Admiral Harrison. "Sir, they're breaking up. The whole fleet is falling apart." Harrison smiled. "That's what happens when predators meet real soldiers. All ships pursue and destroy. Don't let any of them escape to threaten other worlds." The human fleet spread out across the star system, hunting down fleeing Korvac ships. It was dangerous work, as wounded bioships could still fight, but the humans were relentless. They had come here to save the Valani, but they had also come to send a message to the galaxy. By the end of the day, the Korvac blockade was completely destroyed. Of the 800 bioships that had threatened Valani Prime, fewer than 50 escaped into deep space. The rest floated dead in orbit around the crystal world. On the planet's surface, Colonel Anderson reported that all Korvac ground forces had been eliminated. The crystal cities were safe, and the Valani people were free. Ambassador Thiel met with Admiral Harrison in one of the crystal towers. The alien diplomat's crystalline features seemed to glow with happiness. 3 months after the Battle of Valani Prime, Admiral Jack Harrison stood in the Crystal Council chamber of the Valani government. Through the transparent walls, he could see human and Valani workers rebuilding the damaged parts of the city. It was a beautiful sight. 2 different species, working together to create something better than either could build alone. Ambassador Thiel approached Harrison with what humans had learned was a Valani smile, a gentle glowing of their crystalline features. Admiral, we have received word from the Korvac Home Systems. Their leadership wishes to discuss peace terms. Harrison was not surprised. After their defeat at Valani Prime, the remaining Korvac forces had tried to attack other peaceful worlds. But they found human ships waiting for them at every target. Captain Cooper, now promoted to Admiral, led a fast response fleet that could reach any threatened system within days. The Korvac had learned that their old tactics no longer worked. They could not simply overwhelm peaceful species with brute force, because humans would arrive to even the odds. After losing thousands of bioships in failed attacks, the Korvac finally understood that they needed to change their ways. What are they offering? Harrison asked. Complete withdrawal from all occupied systems, Thiel replied. They will return to their home worlds and agree to leave other species alone. In exchange, they ask only that humans do not hunt them to extinction. Harrison thought about this. The easy thing would be to refuse and continue the war until every Korvac was dead. Many humans wanted exactly that, especially the families of Marines who had died fighting the alien predators. But Harrison remembered something President Williams had told him before the fleet departed. We fight not because we love war, but because we love peace. When our enemies are defeated, we must be wise enough to know when to stop fighting. I want to meet with their leaders, Harrison said, face to face. If they're serious about peace, they can prove it by coming here, to the world they tried to destroy. 2 weeks later, a single Korvac bioship arrived at Valani Prime. The ship was different from the warships humans had fought, smaller, with no visible weapons, and colored silver instead of the usual black. It carried the Korvac peace delegation. The aliens who emerged from the ship were terrifying to look at. They stood 3 meters tall, with thick armor-like skin and claws that could tear through metal. But their leader, who called himself War Chief, Gractor, moved slowly and kept his weapons sheathed. The peace talks took place in the same crystal chamber where Harrison now stood. Human, Valani, and Korvac representatives sat around a circular table, trying to find a way to end centuries of bloodshed. Your species confuses us, Gractor admitted during the first day of talks. We understand strength. We understand the desire to conquer and consume. But you fight fiercely, then offer mercy to your defeated enemies. This is not logical. Ambassador Carol Wright, Earth's best diplomat, had arrived to handle the negotiations. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but she spoke with authority that even the massive Korvac respected. War Chief Gractor, she said, humans learned long ago that victory without wisdom leads to endless conflict. We can destroy your people if we choose to. But what would that accomplish? Dead enemies cannot become friends. The negotiations continued for weeks. The Korvac struggled to understand human concepts like forgiveness and rehabilitation. They had evolved as predators, and predators did not usually spare their prey. But slowly, progress was made. Dr. Helen Carter, who had traveled from Earth to study Korvac biology, made an important discovery. The Korvac were not naturally evil. They were driven by biological programming that made them aggressive and territorial. With the right treatments, this programming could be modified. "We can help your people change," Dr. Carter told Hector. "Not by force, but by choice. Your warriors can learn to channel their aggression into protecting others instead of consuming them." The final peace treaty was signed on a Tuesday morning in the Crystal Chamber. The terms were simple but revolutionary. The Korvac would withdraw from all occupied worlds and return any surviving prisoners. They would accept human and Vellani observers on their homeworlds to ensure compliance. In exchange, humans would provide medical and technological assistance to help the Korvac evolve beyond their predatory nature. Most importantly, any Korvac who wished to change their ways would be welcomed into the growing alliance of peaceful species. Those who chose to remain predators would be confined to their home systems, where they could fight each other instead of innocent civilizations. War Chief Graktor was the first Korvac to volunteer for the biological treatment that would reduce his aggressive instincts. The process was risky and painful, but he survived it. Afterward, he said something that amazed everyone present. "For the first time in my life, I feel peace. I understand now why other species choose cooperation over conquest. There is strength in building rather than destroying." The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Dozens of alien civilizations watched as ancient enemies became unlikely allies. The message was clear. The age of unchallenged aggression was over. Admiral Harrison returned to Earth 6 months later to find a changed world. Humanity's role as protectors of the galaxy had transformed human society. The military was stronger than ever, but it was focused on defense and peacekeeping rather than conquest. President Williams met Harrison at the spaceport. "Admiral, the whole galaxy is talking about what you accomplished out there. We are receiving requests for defensive alliances from dozens of species." "That's good, Mr. President," Harrison replied. "But we need to be careful. Power can corrupt, even when it's used for good purposes. We must never forget that we fight to protect others, not to control them." The president nodded. "That's why I'm creating a new organization, the Galactic Defense Force. It will be commanded jointly by humans and our alien allies, with representatives from every member species. No single race will have too much power." Admiral Sullivan, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, would lead the human contingent of the new force. Her first assignment was to establish defensive stations throughout the galaxy, manned by mixed crews. From different species. Captain Jake Mitchell, the man whose decision to answer an alien distress call had started everything, was given command of the first mixed exploration fleet. His ship, the UES Horizon, carried crews from 12 different species, including humans, Vellani, and even some reformed Korvac. "It's amazing," Jake told Harrison during their last meeting on Earth. "6 months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're part of something bigger than we ever imagined." Harrison agreed. "But Jake, remember why this all started. We didn't become galactic protectors because we wanted power. We did it because someone asked for help, and we couldn't say no. The Deathworlder fleet still existed, but its mission had evolved. Instead of preparing for human wars, it now trained with alien allies to defend peaceful civilizations from any threat that might arise." Captain Nicole Davis commanded a joint human-Vellani cruiser, her crew learning to combine human tactical thinking with Vellani scientific precision. Captain Steve Miller worked with Korvac engineers to develop new defensive technologies. Captain Tony Rodriguez led training exercises where former enemies learned to fight side by side. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still pirates and raiders who preyed on the weak. But now there was hope. When peaceful species faced threats they could not handle alone, They knew that help would come. Admiral Harrison often thought about the first message Amy Turner had decoded from the dying Villani. They had called humans Deathworlders, beings from a planet so dangerous that only the strongest could survive. The Villani had been right, but not in the way they expected. Earth was indeed a death world, and humans were indeed dangerous. But their greatest strength was not their ability to destroy. It was their refusal to let others suffer when they had the power to help. On quiet nights, Harrison would stand on his balcony and look up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships patrolled the space lanes, keeping trade routes safe. Human Marines stood guard over refugee camps, protecting those who had lost their homes to war. Human diplomats worked to prevent conflicts before they could begin. The call that had summoned the Deathworlder fleet to an alien world had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and the universe was no longer a place where might automatically made right. Ambassador Thiel had been correct when he told the humans they were unique among galactic species. Most civilizations became peaceful by forgetting how to fight. Humans had become peaceful by learning when to fight and when to show mercy. In the crystal archives of Villani crime, historians recorded the story of the species that had traveled across the galaxy to save strangers, asking nothing in return except the chance to build a better future for all. They called it the day the Deathworlders chose life. And in human space, children learned about the adventure that began when Commander Jake Mitchell decided to answer a call for help from people he had never met. They learned that sometimes the most important decisions are made not by governments or generals, but by ordinary people who choose